Well, I was going to make my second cooking video, and I've already made a mess on my table. There's powder everywhere, and I'm wearing a black t-shirt, and I told myself I'm not going to wear a black t-shirt when I bake again because I just get flour all over it. So anyway, I'm making my mom's shortbread cookies. This is written on an index card when I was either very young or possibly even before I was born. And I got this from her probably 27 years ago. This is the first thing I've ever baked from scratch. I've already put in, I'm halving the recipe by the way. I've already put in 1 cup of margarine and it's softened. And then I started adding powdered sugar when I made my mess. Now it says 1 cup of powdered sugar. Now I'm not going to add a cup. Now there's some in there already. Not much, but there's some in there already because I realized I didn't have the camera set properly, so I stopped everything. So I'm going to put in, this is a 1/4 cup times 2. So that's 1/2 cup right there. So that's 1/2 cup. I need 2 cups. So that's a 1/4 cup times 2. I'm going to put in a little bit more because there's already some in there. And now the rest is going to be brown sugar because I just like how it tastes with the brown sugar. So let's go for it. Let's get some brown sugar. Now this is not really brown sugar. This is the closest thing I could find in the supermarkets here in Japan. So here is a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, which makes it the whole deal. Okay, so look how professional I am not. So I used my whole thing of brown sugar. So now you're supposed to beat this until it's creamy, but I don't have an egg beater, so I'll just mix it like this with my spatula until it's creamy. So what I want is just to make all the white powder disappear, because there is another thing I've got to add to this which will help it be creamy. And that is an egg yolk. But you know, that's creamy enough right there. Okay, now the next thing I've got to add is the egg yolk. Now, I showed this in another video. In Japan, the best before date is printed directly on the egg. So I've still got almost 2 weeks before I have to use my eggs up. I don't eat eggs. I don't eat fried eggs or scrambled eggs or boiled eggs or anything like that. And there's the egg yolk, boom. Separated like a master. That's one thing I can do. I can just take the 2 halves of the shell and separate out the white. There's my egg yolk. Now you got to mix all this up even more. And that's pretty creamy. And I think that's very well mixed. Okay. Yep. Now the next thing I've got to do is I've got to add, what does it say in my recipe? I've got to add a half a cup of cornstarch and 2 cups of flour. So let me get my half cup again. I've already wiped it out. This is a 1/4 cup, but I'll use it. And I need, oh, I've got so much white powder on my, that's plenty of cornstarch. And then I'm going to add 2 cups of flour, because I'm having the recipe. Now this is my half cup measuring cup, so I'm gonna do 4 of these to get my 2 cups of flour. So there's 1, 2, that's 1 cup. Left some in the bottom by accident. There's 3. 4. That makes 2 cups of flour. And then you got to mix this thoroughly, and it should become a dough. Now this has a lot of margarine in it, so it is a kind of soft, wet kind of dough once it's all mixed together. My counter, my table area, if you could see it, again, you know, black table, black t-shirt, it just looks messy. Mix this up. And eventually you got to get in there with your hands. I will stop this video before I get in there with my hands, because if I get in there with my hands, I can't touch the camera. Yep, that's mixing really well. So I tend to put in a little bit more cornstarch and a little bit more flour than the recipe asks for. And one reason is I don't have an air conditioner, so I can't really do any climate control of my apartment. And Japan is a hot, humid country. Now it is April, but it is starting to get hot. And when it's too hot, I can't bake these cookies because they're mostly, not mostly, but there's a large amount of margarine in them, so they just get goopy. Okay, I'm gonna have to get in there with my hands pretty soon. But that is a pretty firm looking dough. So the next step is to, you know, shape it with a dough, roll it out so that it's about 2 inches wide in this kind of a snake. Then you wrap it in saran wrap and you put it in the fridge and let it cool down and solidify. And once all that's done, you can start to cut it and shape it into what you want the cookies to look like. So I'm going to stop this video here and I'm going to clean up my area and make my snakes and refrigerate them, and I'll come back when I'm shaping the cookies. Look at that mess. I haven't cleaned it up at all, but anyway, this is what the snake things look like. You just roll it into a snake like this and wrap it in saran wrap and put it in the freezer to cool down. Now, I've got another snake that is smaller, and I'm going to cut it into pieces and start shaping my cookies with it. My oven is preheating right now at 220. Is that what it says here? This is 350. Now let me confirm. 350 Fahrenheit is what? 350 Fahrenheit is, oh geez, it's not 220, it's 180. So let me put that back down a little bit to 180. So it's going to preheat to 180. Now I've got another place where I'm cutting these. I'm going to cut them, shape them, and I realize I didn't put in my cinnamon, which disappoints me, but cinnamon's not part of the original recipe, so that's fine. Now with my tiny little cooking sheets, I can cook 6 at a time. So you take the pieces you cut up, make them into a ball, put them on the cookie sheet. Now they get bigger when they cook. So I can cook 6 at a time, and it's 12 to 15 minutes each time. So depending how many I make, I should be able to make over 2 dozen with half of the recipe. And I like the cookies a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker. So sometimes I'll use my fork to make the crisscross pattern on the top. But when they're soft and sticky like this, the fork doesn't really work. So I just smush them with my hand. And they do get bigger as they cook. So that's going to go in the oven when it's ready. Now I've got 3 cookie sheets like this, so I can just kind of go in a kind of a rotation. Now the smaller snake I cut up, only cut into 11 pieces. So I'm going to have to get the other snake out and start cutting it up too. But anyway, this is the next step. You shape the cookies, you put them on the cookie sheet. The oven is preheating. And I like that these are homemade. I like that they're not all the same size, they're not all the same shape. So I'm just going to keep doing that. You know, I'll get 18 ready to go on these 3 cookie sheets, and then start my rotation of baking. And when I come back, I should have some cookies to show you. Hey, there's my cooling rack. I've cleaned up my work area. And I'm going to take out the first batch. There's 6 cookies there. I think they're cooked properly. Let them cool down a bit. And I'm going to throw in another batch. Now, I've got 7, 7, 7. So that's 21 plus 6 is 27. So I'm going to have 27 cookies, which is, you know, more than 2 dozen. I think the last time I had 27 cookies too. So I'll come back when I've got all the cookies baked, and I'll have them all in this bag that I'm going to keep in the freezer so I can eat them at my leisure over the next few weeks. You know, a couple cookies a day at night with my supper as a treat. And they're all homemade. So I've kind of made a decision. If I want to have bread, I'm going to bake it myself. I'm not going to buy it in the supermarket. I'll bake it myself. If I want to have something sweet, I'll bake it myself. I might buy ice cream because I'm not confident about making and storing ice cream, but other things like cake or whatever, if I want it, I'll bake it. If I'm not going to bake it, I'm not going to have it. That'll be my, you know, my work and my reward. That'll be the price I pay if I want to have something sweet, and that should control me eating sweet things. But I will still have milkshakes on occasion. But anyway, I'll come back when all the cookies are ready. There is the last batch of cookies out of the oven, and you can see I made 7, so I could either make 6, 6, 6, 6, and then just make 3, but I decided to make the first 6 and then 7, 7, 7. And the rest are all in this bag ready for the freezer. I decided, since my dough was firm enough, to slap some fork markings on these ones. That's very homemade style. So when these cool down, I'm going to put them in here, and this is all going to go in my freezer. And there's my 27 cookies to enjoy for the next week or two, couple weeks, hopefully. I'll be responsible and not eat them all in one day. And I regret not adding a little cinnamon, but that's fine. Shortbread's fine. Cookies are fine. There are my sweets. Thank you for watching. The recipe will be in the description to this video. Bye-bye.